Welcome to my first ever video for Hunter builds. So I've been playing Hunter for a long time, and I've built a lot of weird setups. Some worked, some didn't, and some somehow became the builds I just keep coming back to. These 5 builds aren't tied to artifact mods, they're flexible, reliable, and some of them go way back even before Final Shape. If you're a Hunter main, or just Hunter curious, I think you'll find something here that sticks. Let's get into it. For the first build, exotic class item and woven mail. If you're looking for Hunter build that can survive solo Grandmasters, tank like a Titan, and debuff everything around you, this is definitely it. I've been running this build since the Final Shape dropped, and with the right synergy this season, it becomes a survival machine. We're talking up to 215% damage reduction, plus constant debuffs, health regen, and ability spam. And the best part, it works even without seasonal artifact mods. We're gonna use the exotic class item with the spirit of, I will so butcher this, Siratarachne, which grants woven mail after using a grenade, giving you a flat 45% damage reduction just from throwing a grenade. We're gonna pair it with the spirit of Galanor, which refunds super energy based on hits and kills with your super. Woven mail is your core survival mechanic here. The more grenades, the more uptime, equal the more survivability. As for the super, we're gonna go Shadow Shot, Deadfall, or if you prefer it, Silence and Squall. Both are very fantastic for crowd control, though I'd say I like Deadfall more than Silence and Squall. That's because you can focus on a single point rather than hoping and praying that Silence and Squall will go into the direction you need it to go. I mean, let's be honest, Silence and Squall sometimes just goes off to that one enemy that is on the other side of the map. As for the dodge, very simply, we're just gonna go Gambler's Dodge, paired though with the aspect Ascension. This gives you and your allies amplified and Jolt's nearby target. And thank God to the recent changes Bungie did, which I'm really glad about, we receive 15% damage resistance while amplified is active. As for the grenade, we're gonna go Grapple, which will trigger woven mail and it will apply Unravel to enemies when we use the powerful melee. For the melee, we're gonna go Threaded Spike. In my opinion, the best melee ability on Prismatic Hunter. Threaded Spike will apply Sever on hit, reducing enemy damage output by 40%, and this is literally just with throwing your melee. As for the second aspect, we're gonna go Gunpowder Gamble. Elemental debuff enemy kills stacks up charges for a solar grenade-like explosion. It's amazing for either stunning unstoppables or just clearing out a room with some enemies in it. Since this will count as a grenade, it's another source of woven mail as well. This will be very simple to charge up since we have Sever, Jolt, and Unravel by base that we apply to targets. Let's get to the fragments. First of all, we're gonna go Fragments of Protection for the additional 15% damage reduction when we're close to minimum 3 enemies. Then we're gonna go Facet of Purpose. Orbs of Power grant buffs based on the subclass equipped. So if we're gonna go Void, we're gonna get an Overshield. If we go Stasis, we're gonna get Frost Armor. This is another reason why I love Deadfall more than Silence and Squall, because the Overshield will give us another 70% damage reduction while the Overshield is active. Then we're gonna equip Facet of Solitude. Precision hits emit a Sever Blast. This is just for an additional 40% damage output reduction for enemies like Threaded Spike. Then we're gonna go Facet of Ruin. This boosts AoE size of Gunpowder's Gamble ignitions. Then let's go Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows start health regeneration. Remember that the grapple melee attack will start this off as well. So if you grapple into a group of enemies, you will get your health regeneration back. Transcendence melee final blows will start health regeneration not only for you, but nearby allies as well. So it's a nice little support ability for your fire team. Then for the last fragment, we're gonna equip Facet of Hope. Increases class ability recharge when you have an elemental buff applied to you, like Amplified or Woven Mail. As for the weapons, in this current season, I heavily suggest going Tinashe's Mastery, a rocket assisted sidearm from Iron Banner. The sidearm rolls with Chill Clip, which deals easily with Unstoppable, Overloads, and thanks to the current season's artifact mod, carrier champions as well. As for the energy weapon, by default, I always go Red Death Reformed, which with enough weapon kills will give you restoration, at least a little healing remnant for your allies. This is not 100% necessary though. I switched to Monarch and had no issues staying alive. For the heavy weapon, you want to go a Void Machine Gun. This synergizes with Void Siphon plus the seasonal artifact mod for ×2 resist, or another 25% damage reduction after getting 8 instances of damage. Let's get to the armor stats and the mod setup. First, for stats, you definitely want to push 100 resilience if possible. That's your baseline damage reduction and it stacks beautifully with Woven Mail, Sever and the other buffs we're using. After that, focus on mobility and discipline. Mobility is important to get your dodge back fast, and discipline helps you get your grapple up more often, which keeps Woven Mail active as well as Unravel. Now, recovery in this case is not that important. I run 20 recovery here and I have no issue staying alive in GMs or lost sectors. The constant damage reduction and health regeneration from the build cover for it completely. Let's get into the specific mods of the armor. For the helmet, you want to equip Assets to Asset, which generates super energy from grenade kills, which you will be getting a lot thanks to Gunpowder's Gamble. Then a heavy ammo finder, which explains itself. Then a harmonic siphon generates orbs on matching weapon kills. For the arms, you want to get impact induction. Melee damage reduces grenade cooldown, perfect for threaded spike into grapple rotation. For the focusing strike, grants class ability energy on melee damage. Again, synergizes with threaded spike and dodge spam. And firepower creates orbs on grenade kills. This again is insane with Gunpowder Gamble. As for the chest, you just want to go your standard damage resistance mods. Depending on the activity, arc, solar strand, etc. This is very customized based on incoming damage. For the legs, you want to go weapon surges. Based on your primary damage dealer, if you're using Void Machine Guns or Arc Special, slot accordingly for bonus damage. For the class item, you want to go Reaper. Creates orbs on weapon kills after class ability use. But note that this won't work if you're using Ascension. Even if it consumes your dodge, it's not recognized as a class ability use right now. At least for the armor mods. Healthy Finisher. Fully restores health and shield when you finish an enemy. Uses 1 armor charge. Time Dilation. Makes your armor charge based buffs last longer, which helps maintain those weapon surges. Okay, let's talk maximum resistance. With everything active, this build will give you Woven Mail, 45% damage reduction. Amplified, 15% damage reduction. Sever from Threaded Spike, minus 40% enemy damage, which I feel like we can count into the total of the damage reduction. 100 Resilience, 30% damage reduction. Facet of Protection, 15% damage reduction. Void Overshield, 70% damage reduction. And if Transcendence is active, 20% damage reduction. The total, 235 effective reduction or mitigation in peak scenarios. You're tanky, explosive, and constantly controlled. Whether you're soloing a GM, farming master lost sectors, or just playing recklessly stylish, this is the build. I absolutely love this for endgame content. Let's dive into build number 2, the Arc Hunter build that blinds everything. If you're looking for an Arc Hunter build that can blind an entire room, jolt everything you touch, and still shrug off damage with up to 120% resistance, this one is for you. This is hands down my favorite Arc Hunter build, not just because it's effective, but because it feels non-stop. For the super, we're gonna go Gathering Storm. It's a strong single target burst with AoE Jolt, while having the fastest cooldown among Arc supers as well. I know a lot of people say that there's other ones that they like more, but personally I think Gathering Storm is the one to go. As for the dodge, we're gonna go Gambler's Dodge. It just makes it so easy to get your charged melee back immediately thanks to this dodge. For the melee, we're gonna go Disorienting Blow. This one is pretty flexible. You won't use it much, but I keep it for panic unstoppables blinds if fully charged. If you prefer Combination Blow for the faster regen, be my guest and equip that. As for the grenade, we're gonna go Flashbang Grenade. I won't lie, I have never used this grenade before, but in this build it's amazing. It blinds everything around your target, making it perfect for crowd control and stunning unstoppables. Let's get into the aspects. For the first one, you want to equip Tempest Strike. Slide and use your charged melee to send out a wave that travels 22 meters and jolts enemies. For the second one, we're gonna go Ascension. Ascension uses our class ability to jolt nearby targets and apply Amplify to you and nearby allies. Finally, Bungie changed Ascension and now not only consumes your class ability, but it acts like it. Since we have Gambler's Dodge, that means we will get our charged melee back when we use Ascension near target. That means you can chain Tempest Strike, Ascension, and Tempest Strike again back to back. Let's look at the fragments. First, you want to equip Spark of Beacons. While amplified, final blows with special or heavy arc weapons trigger blinding explosions. Thanks to this makes it very easy to survive because you're gonna blind a lot of enemies around the target. Then, let's go on to the second one, Spark of Ions. Defeating jolted enemies generate ionic traces which give 15% regen for all abilities. It has a cooldown of 10 seconds, but getting this 15% or not getting it is a big difference. Spark of Discharge builds ionic traces over time by killing with arc weapons. Red bars are 34%, orange bars are 67%, and yellow bars are 100%. Reaching 100 spawns the ionic trace. This doesn't have a cooldown. Spark of Resistance. This gives 25% damage resist when 3 enemies are within 15 meters. Then for the last one, you want to equip Spark of Frequency. Melee hits boost reload and stability when amplified. Full charge generation from all sources are increased by 1. If you want even easier Jolt access, you can swap out beacons for Spark of Shock, which lets your grenade apply Jolt on hit. As for the exotic armor, you probably saw it coming. Gifted Conviction. An insanely good hunter exotic chest piece that I loved since it came out, but now with the addition of 15% damage resist buff from Amplified, it got even better. Every time you use Tempest Strike or Ascension, it triggers a wave of 3 bouncing arc explosives that jolt nearby enemies. The reason we go Gifted Conviction on this build is because we'll have a constant stream of abilities that will continuously jolt targets, giving us the main benefit of Gifted Conviction, the damage resist. So the resist mechanic is as following. 1 Jolt instance, for example Tempest Strike, gives us ×2 resist, which is a 25% damage reduction. 2 Jolt instances, so Tempest Strike and Ascension, gives us a ×3 resist, so 40% damage reduction. 3 Jolt instances, so Tempest Strike, Ascension, and Tempest Strike, will give us ×4 resist, so a 50% damage reduction. Each of those applications lasts for 10 seconds, and every new Jolt refreshes that time. Be careful with the seasonal mod Heavy Ordnance Regeneration. If you deal 8 hits with an LMG or 2 hits with a rocket, it will override your resist stack and reset it back to ×2. That is a 25% drop in damage resist. If that is fine with you and you want to benefit from the ×2 grenade melee recharge rate, be my guest. But considering that we're using Gifted Conviction and it's really easy to get ×2 by base with it, it wouldn't make that much sense to use this build then. As for the weapons, for weapons it is mainly important to have an arc, special and heavy equipped, since we will be utilizing those to create blinding explosions, ionic traces and orbs of power. If you want full synergy across all weapons, use something with Osmosis for arc synergy after grenade use. Weapons with the perk Permeability, which does the same thing only with the class ability, sadly don't work since we are using Ascension. A great weapon could be Traveler's Chosen with the Catalyst though. It gives Osmosis and you can consume stacks for ability regen. Each kill with it will give you 1 stack of Gathering Light to a max of 10 stacks. Consuming those stacks by holding the reload button will generate 10% grenade, melee and class ability for each Gathering Light stack consumed. As for the energy weapon, Indebted Kindness, the sidearm from Warlord's Ruin, is perfect. Compact, hard hitting and great ammo economy. If it has Volt Shot, just note that Volt Shot does not count towards Gifted Conviction's resist. Another really great weapon is the exotic fusion rifle Delicate Tomb. Not only does the Jolt feed into the resist from Gifted Conviction, it generates a lot of ionic traces for ability recharge as well. As for the heavy, any arc weapon works. I love the new machine gun Watchful Eye from the Nether activity since it rolls with Rolling Storm. which gives bolt charges on elimination. Being amplified increases this effect further by 1. Let's get to armor stats and mod setup. Mobility isn't that important. We will have amplified up the whole time, which will give us, in addition to other things, 50 mobility. You want to focus on resilience, recovery and discipline. With 100 resilience, you will get an additional 30% damage reduction from enemies. For the helmet, you want to go Arc Siphon, which explains itself. You want to go Special Ammo Fighter and Special Ammo Scouts. You definitely don't want to run out of special ammo. As for the arms, you want to go twice Bolstering Detonation. With 2 copies, causing damage with a grenade gives us 17% class ability recharge. Momentum Transfer. Causing damage with a grenade gives us 12% melee energy. The reason I'm not using Focusing Strike is because sadly Tempest Strike doesn't work. Even though it consumes your charged melee, it isn't counted as one for these armor mods. It's kinda like Ascension and Powerful Attraction. Chest. Any resistance mods you need for the activity, you will be running. For the legs, you're gonna go Recuperation, which picking up an Orb of Power replenishes 70 health per orb. Then you're gonna equip Arc Surge. When picking up an Orb of Power, gain Armor Charge, which will give you with 1 copy a 10% damage increase to your arc weapons. And for the third one, you're gonna go Harmonic Scavenger. Arc weapons will get bonus reserves when picking up ammo. For the first mod on the class item, we're gonna go Proximity Ward, which gives a powerful overshield during finishes. Then we're going to equip special finishes. By having 3 armor charges, finisher will generate special ammo for the whole fire team. And for the last one, we're gonna equip Time Dilation. This gives us more time on your armor charges, benefiting longer of the arc weapon surge. Here's how the total damage reduction stacks up. Amplified 15%, Spark of Protection 25%, Gift and Conviction Resist 25%, 40 or 50%. I will just take ×3 resist to make it more real, because sometimes it can be tricky to get ×4. 100 resilience for 30%. This translates to around 110 damage resist with 2 Jolt applications and 120 damage resist with 3 Jolt applications. I always loved Arc Hunters, and with this setup, it's everything I want. Non-stun abilities, tons of crowd control, and a surprising amount of survivability, even in Grandmasters. Build 3. Orpheus Rig Prismatic Hunter. This wouldn't be a top 5 hunter build video without the classic, the Orpheus Rig. I've been carrying this exotic since I was a fresh Mulite, and even though it's not as dominant as some of the newer endgame options, it's still incredibly fun, and Prismatic gives it a really interesting twist. This version focuses on slowing, freezing, invisibility, and a surprising amount of survivability with a clean 105% damage reduction potential. For the exotic armor, we're building around Orpheus Rig, obviously, which refunds up to 50% super energy based on how many enemies get tethered with Deathfall. It's a fantastic way to loop super energy, especially with all the debuffs, slows, and invisibility this kit brings. For the super, obviously, we're gonna go Shadow Shot Deathfall. Still one of the best crowd controlled supers. Tethers suppress and weaken enemies. The tethered enemies also take 30% more damage and share 50% body shot damage amongst themselves. For the dodge, surprise surprise, we're gonna go with Gambler's Dodge again. As previously, this will refund our melee energy when dodging close to enemies. This is important to get our Threaded Spike back as fast as possible to debuff targets. For the melee, as mentioned with the dodge, is a Threaded Spike. It severs target, reducing the damage output by 40% and can bounce between enemies up to 9 times. I will probably repeat this quite a bit of times. For the grenade, we're gonna go Duskbeat. This slows enemies and freezes them if they stay in the field. It's great for stopping a push, and it feeds into Winter's Shroud fast class ability cooldown, which we're gonna get to now. For the aspects, we're gonna go Stylish Executioner. Defeating enemies affected by elemental buffs turns you invisible. Plus, while you're invisible from this effect, your next melee does increase damage and weakens the enemy. Sadly, while doing some tests, I noticed that Threaded Spike is not affected by this, only the base physical melee attack. Maybe I didn't do the tests well enough, but it didn't seem like it worked. For the second aspect, we're gonna go Winter's Shroud. Dodging slows enemies, and anytime you slow a target, even with something like Chill Clip, you get a 300% class ability recharge boost. For the fragments, here are the fragments I'm using to support survivability, ability uptime, and some utility cycling. First of all, Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows trigger health regeneration. Then, Facet of Awakening. rapid kills with light or darkness damage generates elemental pickups, depending with what element you got the eliminations. Then, Facet of Protection, 15% damage resist when surrounded by 3 or more enemies. Then, Facet of Hope, speeds up class ability cooldown when you have an elemental buff active, 40% for 1 and 60% with 2. Then for the last one, we're gonna go Facet of Balance. Get 3 eliminations within 3 seconds and you'll gain a 10% melee or grenade energy based on light or darkness skills. Let's get to the weapons. For the kinetic slot, I heavily recommend Tinashe's Mastery with Chill Clip. Chill Clip slows enemies on impact, perfect for Winter's Shroud, giving you that faster dodge recharge. And once that slow target is defeated, you'll be able to turn invisible as well. For the energy, I would go Graviton Lance. Graviton still to this day is a monster in act clear. If you want to try something different, you could go Lotus Eater as well. The Void Rocket Sidearm benefits from destabilization rounds and works great with Stylish Executioner. As for the heavy, you can really go anything you want to. Personally, I'm currently using a heavy machine gun with the artifact mod Heavy Ordnance Regeneration, which gives me a 25% damage reduction buff and better melee and grenade recharge time. For the armor stats and mod setup. For this build, you want to focus on mobility, resilience, and discipline. As always, it's best to have 100 resilience to get that 30% damage reduction. For the mods on the armor, twice hands-on, which gains super energy from melee eliminations, and Void Siphon. For the arms, we're gonna go ×2 grenade kickstyle, which gives us up to 31% grenade energy return with 2 mods and 4 armor charges thanks to charged up. On the chest, as mentioned before, we're gonna go charged up, which increases the maximum amount of armor charges you can have by 1. 3 is the default, so with this we can have a maximum of 4. And then just add damage resist mods based on the activity. For the legs, we're gonna go Innervation, 10% grenade energy per orb, then Recuperation, which gives 70 health per orb, and then Stacks on Stacks, which gives us an extra armor charge per orb we pick up. For the class item, we're gonna go Bomber, which gives us 12% grenade energy on dodge, then Powerful Reaction. Collects orbs in a 12.5 meter radius when dodging, and for the last one, we're gonna go Reaper. In a 10 seconds, the next weapon kill after dodging generates an orb of power. Alright, here's what the setup gives you in terms of damage resistance. The damage resistance stats are 100% resilience, 30%. Facet of Protection, 15%. Transcendence active, 20%. And Sever from the Threaded Spike is a -40% enemy damage. Situational but significant. That brings you ± to 105% damage mitigation. I will admit this isn't your top tier GM loadout, but that's not what I want to achieve with it. You've got constant invis, freezing, slowing, debuffs, and super uptime. Overall, I just think this is a fun and chill build to use when running random activities. Let's get to the fourth build, the Renewal Grasp Stasis Hunter. I've tried a lot of Stasis Hunter builds, but none have hit quite like this one. It's not your typical solo GM setup, but it is a frost armor generating, stasis crystal spewing, ability spamming build that absolutely locks down crowds, and it's more fun than any other stasis loadout I've used. This build has been saved in my loadout since Onslaught dropped, so it's pretty old. This build is centered around Renewal Grasps, the exotic arms that enhance your Duskfield grenade in a few major ways. Plus 25% radius on Duskfield, enemies inside deal 50% less damage, you and allies inside generate frost armor every 0.5 seconds, and at 5 stacks, frost armor gives 31.25% damage reduction. It's a powerful loop of crowd control and survivability. As for the super, we're gonna go Silence and Squall. It's the only super available, obviously, but that's fine. It's still excellent for zone control and freezing ads across a wide area. For the dodge, surprise, surprise, again, we're gonna go Gambler's Dodge to refund our charge melee ability. For the melee ability, we're gonna go Withering Blade, which slows enemies on impact, freezing on the second hit, great utility, easy freeze trigger. For the grenade, obviously, we're gonna go Duskfield Grenade, the heart of this build. Slows targets in the field, freezes them if they stay in it. Also generates frost armor with Touch of Winter. Let's get into the aspects. We're gonna go Grim Harvest. Defeating frozen or slowed enemies creates stasis shards. Picking them up restores melee energy. 10% for small ones and 50% from the large ones. And also grants frost armor. For the second one, we're gonna go Touch of Winter, which buffs our Dusk Field, increasing the slow radius and places a stasis crystal in the center every time. For the fragments, we're gonna go Whisper of Chains. Defeating targets while having frost armor generates a small stasis shard upon reaching 100% of the counter. The counter charges are gonna be 34% for red bars, 67% for orange bars, and 100% for yellow bars. Then we're gonna go Whisper of Refraction. Regen class ability on defeating slowed or frozen enemies. Then Whisper of Durance. Slow that you apply lasts longer. Whisper of Fishes buffs crystal and target shatter AoE and damage. And then for the last one, we're gonna equip Whisper of Shards. Shattering stasis crystal grants a brief 500% increased grenade regen. These tie together to keep your Dusk Field spam alive and your frost armor constantly refreshed. As for the weapons, we're gonna include a very specific exotic bow that I'm sure you haven't heard about for quite some time. The Verglass Curve. One of the most underrated exotics right now and perfect for this build. Kills charge up Hail Barrage up to 5, which fires stasis crystal forming arrows. With this weapon, you're always surrounded by crystals to shatter, block damage, or trigger Whisper of Shards. In the energy slot, I would go Lotus Eater, or it's really your choice. I'm running Lotus Eater, the rocket sidearm for barrier champion coverage and quick overshield, but you can really use whatever fits your loadout. This slot is very flexible. For the heavy slot, it's really your call. I like a machine gun with the heavy ordnance regeneration mod, which adds 25% damage reduction and speeds up ability cooldowns, but again, totally up to you. For the armor stats and mod setup, you 100% want 100 resilience to get that 30% damage reduction and then focus on discipline. On the helmet, you want to have heavy ammo finder. Then for the second, it can be either hands-on or dynamo. Here it depends what you like more and what fits your playstyle more. And for the third one, we can just go in harmonic siphon. On the arms, we're gonna equip bolstering detonations, which gives us 12% class ability regen on grenade damage. We're gonna go impact induction, which gives us 12% grenade energy on melee hits, and grenade kickstart. At 1 mod and 4 armor charges, you get 38.4% grenade energy back when using your fully charged grenade ability. On the chest, we're gonna go charged up, which increases the armor charge cap from 3 to 4, and then you just equip activity appropriate resistance mods. On the legs, we're gonna go innervation, which gives us 10% grenade energy when we pick up an orb of power, recuperation, which will give us 70% health for every orb of power we pick up, and for the last one, you're gonna equip elemental charge. Picking up a stasis shard plus a meter at 100%, we gain an additional armor charge. By base, this should be 4 small stasis shards to get 100% of the meter. For the first mod on the class item, we're gonna go Bomber, which is 12% grenade energy on dodge, Powerful Attraction, which collects orbs in a 12.5 meter radius when dodging, and Reaper, which in a 10 seconds, the next weapon kill after dodging will generate an orb of power. And here's your defensive breakdown. 100 resilience, 30%, frost armor, 31.25 for 5 stacks, and enemies inside Dusk Field deal minus 50% damage. That gives us around 110% damage resist under ideal conditions. Even though this isn't a meta GM build, I had to include it because it's still my favorite stasis loadout. You're freezing everything, building crystals everywhere, and tanking hits with frost armor and constant uptime. And the fact that this build revolves around Verglass Curve, an exotic most people forgot existed, just makes it better. The fifth and final build, Verity and Foetracer Prismatic Hunter. They say you save the best for last, and in this case, I really mean it. Unlike the other builds in this video, which were adapted from other creators and refined over time, this one I built completely from scratch. And it carried me through my first ever solo Grandmaster Nightfall. I'll be dropping the full run video soon, but today let's break down exactly how this thing works. At the core of this build is the Hunter exotic class item using 2 spirits, Verity and Foetracer. For Verity, every time you get a kill with a weapon that matches your grenade element, you build up death throws. Up to 5 stacks that boost grenade damage and regen. To break down those stacks, 1 stack equals 40% damage boost for 8 seconds. 2 stacks is 55% damage boost for 7 seconds. 3 stacks is 70% damage boost for 6 seconds. 4 stacks is 85% damage boost for 5 seconds. 5 stacks is 100% damage boost for 4 seconds. And the best part, this boost applies to your Transcendence Grenade too, even though it's part solar, part stasis. As for the Foetracer, this gives you ×4 weapon surge or 25% damage boost any weapon that matches the element of the ability you use on a boss. So hit the boss with your threaded spike and your Strand Heavy gets a massive boost for 16 seconds. As for the super, we're gonna go Shadow Jolt Deadfall. It's my go-to super. It applies weaken and crowd control in one. Great opener for a normal or Transcendence grenade toss with ×5 death throws. For the dodge, again, surprise surprise, Gamblers dodge. For reasons I think we all already know. As for the melee, we're gonna go Threaded Spike for the same reason that we did on the other builds. It severs targets on hits and reduces the damage output by 40%. For the grenade, this depends on your energy weapon. I use magnetic because in testing it did the highest single target damage when thrown with ×5 death throws. There's a big but for this and I will get to it later. As for the aspects, we're gonna go Ascension. This grants us Amplify to get that 15% damage reduction buff. In addition, it helps us move faster around and jolt targets. For the second aspect, we're gonna go Stylish Executioner, giving us invisibility when defeating elemental debuff targets. This gives another layer of survivability. As for the fragments, we're gonna go Facet of Protection, which gives us 15% damage reduction when within 15 meters of 3 enemies. For the second one, we're gonna go Facet of Dominance. Arc grenades will apply Jolt and Void grenades will apply Weaken. This sadly doesn't affect Transcendence. For the Facet of Hope, class ability charges faster when having elemental buffs applied. 40% for 1 and 60% for 2. We will definitely benefit from the 60% because we will have invisibility, amplified, void overshield or bolt charge active most of the time. Then for the fourth one, we're gonna go Facet of Balance. Getting 3 eliminations within 3 seconds and you'll gain 10% melee or grenade energy based on light or darkness kills. Then for the last one, we're gonna go Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants an elemental buff based on the super equip. Since we use Void, this will be a Void Overshield, giving us a 70% damage reduction while the Void Overshield is active. For the weapons, in the kinetic slot I went Malfeasance, my GM run weapon of choice. Great unstoppable handling and boss DPS. You could always go Traveler's Chosen if you're running more chill content. Has Osmosis and energy regen through gathering light stacks. For the energy weapon. Now this is probably my favorite part of the entire build. The energy weapon slot. Because this is where the build really opens up and lets you make it your own. For my solo GM run, I went Lotus Eater, Void Rocket Sidearm. It synergizes perfectly with my magnetic grenade to build death throw stacks, and since it's void, it also applies weaken thanks to Facet of Dominance. But here's the cool part. If you feel like switching things up, you can do it just by changing the grenade. Swapping to an arc grenade and Depth and Kindness is the way, since Volt Shot just tears through ads and keeps jolting flowing. Or if you want something a bit more supportive or just completely out of the lines in Act Clear, Aberrant Action is the way to go. It gives heal clip when reloading after elimination, plus incandescent to spread Scorch everywhere. This is perfect when you want to use the solar grenade. So really, it depends on your mood. Void, Arc, even solar, they all work here. You get to customize this build around how you like to play, and that's why I love it so much. In the heavy slot, I really recommend you giving Pro Memoria the Strand machine gun a go. This with reconstruction and bait and switch, which will give it a 30% bonus damage buff. This pairs with Foetracer perfectly, since Threaded Spike is Strand, Surge lasts 16 seconds, Bait and Switch lasts 10. Those two damage buffs together gives this weapon a 55% damage boost. And don't forget, the heavy ordnance regeneration mod gives 25% damage reduction after 8 hits with a machine gun. Armor mods and mod setup. You want definitely 100 resilience, so you get that 30% damage reduction. 100 discipline for more grenades, 30 mobility minimum. Amplified pushes you to 80 since it gives plus 50 mobility. Then focus on recovery afterwards. For the helmet, I would go Ashes to Acid, which gives super energy from grenade kills. Then special ammo finder. This is very important because you do not want to run out of special ammo. Then an harmonic siphon. Here, if you switch up the grenade and the energy weapon to create orbs, you could either swap your super to keep harmonic siphon or unequip Ashes to Acid and utilize the respective element you're using. For the arms, I would go Impact Induction, which gives 12% grenade energy on melee hits, Grenade Kickstart, which at 2 mods and 3 armor charges will give you 38.4% grenade energy back when using your fully charged grenade ability. I have tried different combination and mods like Bolstering Detonation and Focusing Strike, but this is what worked best for me. On the chest, you want simply to go the resistant mods tailored to the activity. For the legs, you want to go Innovation, 10% grenade energy per orb, Recuperation, 70 health per orb, and stacks on stacks, extra armor charge per orb. You use this to get quickly max armor charge since powerful attraction doesn't work on Ascension. For the first mod on the class item, we're gonna go Proximity Ward, which gives us a very strong overshield during finishers. We're gonna go Special Finisher. With 3 armor charges, a finisher will generate special ammo for the whole fire team. Then the last mod depends. I went Reaper. The next kill after dodge makes an orb. You could switch this one for utility kickstart for class ability energy, but I went for Reaper since sometimes I did use my normal dodge. In a best case scenario, this build hits 200% total damage resist. 100 resilience equals 30% damage resist. Void Overshield equals 70% damage resist. Amplified equals 15% damage resist. Facet of Protection equals 15% damage resist when within 15 meters of 3 enemies. Threaded Spike equals minus 40% damage output for enemies. And Transcendent Active is a 20% damage resist. That's a mix of incoming damage resist and outgoing enemy debuff, and it keeps you standing even in chaotic situations. This build has insane boss damage, crazy orb and ability generation, debuff, survivability and flexibility. I am pretty proud of this one, and if you try it out, please let me know how it plays for you. And that's it. 5 of my favorite hunter builds built over time, not just around trends. Some of these were adapted and refined from other ideas. Some are builds I've been running since before Final Shape, and one, the last one, I built entirely myself from the ground up. Each one of these has its own purpose: solo survivability, strong crowd control, burst damage, or just straight up fun. I didn't want to throw together a list just for the sake of it. I wanted to show you what I actually run, what works, and why it works. If even one of these builds gave you an idea, or made you want to experiment more with your own loadouts, then that's all I could ask for. Thanks for hanging out, and as always, I hope you have a great day, night, evening, morning, or afternoon, whatever your time zone is. I'll hope I see you in the next one.